Moving on to our very first panel discussion, themed as top industry trends and ways to deliver more cloud, agile, and resilient services. And we have some of the top leaders joining us for the first panel discussion from Oman, of course, and GCC and India as well. It indeed is a great honor for me to introduce our renowned panelists, starting off with Mr. Vikas Kanungo, a Senior Consultant, Digital Development Global Practice, the World Bank Group. Then we have Ms. Sri Lakshmi, Vice President, Head of Analytics and AI from a leading UAE bank. Then we have our third eminent panelist, Mr. Amjad Ali. He heads the IT at Al Saleh Group of Companies, Oman. Last but not the least, we have our DRaaS panel moderator, Dr. Lieutenant Colonel Hamad Khalifa Al Nuaimi. He heads the Telecommunications Division, Information Technology Center at Abu Dhabi Police General Headquarters. Over to you, dear Dr. Hamad, to moderate the panel.
Let's talk about what are the top industries that we are looking at, and would go ahead and ask Mr. Amjad if you can just tell me what are the major driving forces to adopt the cloud services, since Oman and GCC are in the era of adopting cloud services lately in either government sector and the private sector.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Colonel Dr. Hamad Khalifa. And thank you to the Oman-Cloud team for inviting me to today's session. And regarding the question that you have asked me, that what are the major driving forces, as Dr. Saud has recently mentioned, that Industry 4.0, which is globally, of course, a major driving force, which is leading us to the cloud adoption, be it a government, private sector, semi-government. This is the major driving force. But let us talk about the Oman specifically. If we talk about Oman, so we have witnessed recently that Oman has moved most of the services to digital services. Like digital transformation of Oman was the key aspect which was focused in Vision 2040. We all are aware that Vision 2040 is the Oman's vision to do the digital transformation of the country itself, be it the government sector, public sector, or even with the help of private sector and individuals. And we are really seeing it right now that most of the services are already moved to the cloud. These are digitally transformed and moved to the cloud. And if we see recently in current pandemic, where most of the private sectors have thought of doing the continuing the business, and business continuity is definitely with all the sectors, it is impossible if they don't move to the cloud. So these are the two major driving forces. One is the industrial revolution, of course, Industry 4.0. These type of technologies can never be adopted without cloud, because the businesses on premises cannot do much investment in terms of having the big data type of technologies or AI-based technologies, or even for that matter, server platform and the automation platforms. This becomes very difficult. And if we look at Oman's private sector, right now, I can see that the e-commerce is also one of the major driving force, which is helping Oman to move to cloud. And last but not the least, the network infrastructure which Oman has improved recently, like fiber and 5G. These both are the driving forces also which are helping the Oman business, public and private sector to move to cloud. So I believe other than the global trends, which we have talked about, the Industry 4.0, and then the current pandemic, which has accelerated, in fact, the cloud adoption. And thirdly, the Oman Vision 2040. So these are the three major aspects where, of course, the network infrastructure speed has also played a vital role.
Very supportive, Mr. Amjad, to move into the cloud services. But
Thank
we'll
you.
go back to Mr. Amjad. And I guess Shri was talking about the financial industry. What is your input on the cloud services supporting in our life and industry trend? What do you think?
Thank you so much. As I earlier mentioned about Industry 4.0, where you need to have various technologies within your organization, and if you want to take the benefits. What CIOs are saying today that it's not the 10% improvement that you get in the businesses, it is 10 times improvements that you get in your business. And if we see the digital-based companies whose core is data, they have really done a lot here in this because of the cloud services especially. Now, if I talk about in a traditional manner, of course, businesses are agile today. You need to move with the speed of the technology, and you need to move with the speed of the businesses that are there out there in your competition in the red ocean or in a blue ocean. So you need to be competitive. So in order to be competitive, suppose if I need to run an application, I need to introduce a new application to meet the business requirements, and there is speed, there is competition. Of course, I need to put the server in place. I need to buy the hardware. I need to get that hardware in my on-premises data center. Need to see whether the physical space is available, and then the configuration and all these things. So you can see that how long it takes. In the standard scenario, it might take a month or it might take more, but business cannot wait this long. So if we talk about the cloud, so I can simply go and do few clicks and my server with all the configurations will be ready. This is about how the business is cloud is helping business to be agile. Now, when I talk about the Industry 4.0 technologies, where you can have IIoT or IoT in your industries, in your manufacturing companies, or anywhere. So these are, of course, generating large amount of data. It's not only transactional data that you are capturing today. So in order to accommodate this large amount of data, this big data, whether it is structured data, unstructured data, or semi-structured data, so you cannot store this much data for a long time in your organization because it becomes junk. So you need to have the technology available where you can store this data. And once these all device-driven data or app-driven data is ready, you need to, of course, have the data-driven apps to do the analysis of this data, to take the benefit of business analytics. Let us take an example of the predictive analytics. For example, most of the banks in Oman are already using predictive analytics based on the big data, where the credit card fraud is being detected immediately. Instead of doing the analysis of historical data on real time, you can do that as well. But banks have funds available. Banks have maybe the infrastructure available. But think about the private sector, talking about small companies or big companies. They cannot afford to have all these technologies and take the benefit of artificial intelligence, machine learning, or for that metric, robotics or RPA even. So for such companies, or for even all companies, cloud vendors or cloud infrastructure already has these ready-made technologies available, which you can just adopt in few clicks. It's not only about the data, it's about the services that is being provided on the cloud. So either you can integrate your on-premises data with the cloud applications and you can take the benefit. Or again, as rightly mentioned by Dr. Saud about the classification of data, which government sector is doing. So we as a private sector can also do the classification of data. And as rightly said by previous panelists, that you need to do the risk appetite, that which kind of data you can compromise in case even if it is lost. Of course, SASE is being implemented in cloud, so which is definitely a secure mechanism to secure your all data. But what I mean to mention here that these Industry 4.0 related technologies, you really don't need to be a data scientist or you don't need to be a robotics expert within the organization to adopt those technologies. These are ready-made technologies available, which based on the industry trends, you can adopt those technologies and take the benefit of these technologies.
Mr. Amjad, going back to you for one last minute, what approach businesses need for their cloud strategy? and how it can help.
Thank you, Dr. Hamad. Sorry for the wrong name.
Ahmed, Ahmed.
I totally agree with Ms. Sri here and the previous panelist, Mr. Vakas. Of course, the data privacy and data security, these are the most important concerns. That is the reason we can see right now also that only 1/5 of the applications or enterprise applications have moved to cloud, which means that the digital transformation or the business transformation still has to go through the cloud platform. And this is mainly because of the security, because 10 years ago or 14 years ago, since the cloud has grown, the security concerns are still there. But as I mentioned that, of course, cloud services are more concerned about all these aspects. Of course, one is that what we have to put on the cloud, whether we have to put the data external to our premises and then external to our boundaries also. So these are some of the aspects where we need to look at the strategy, as you mentioned that what should be the cloud strategy of the businesses. So one is this, and of course, as we can see that businesses have already invested a lot on having the data center on their premises. So for them, it is very hard to immediately shift all the services to the cloud. So what I mean to mention here that if we talk about the business strategy, and even for that matter, the strategy of the public sector also, even the banks also, that let us keep the critical business applications and critical data on premises and use a hybrid cloud strategy where you can have the public cloud and private cloud and mixture of that, and then do the integration in such a way that if you want to have the DR, if you want to have the backups on the cloud, so we can do that as well. Another strategy for the cross-boundary data transfer, where you might have, for example, in our case, we do have the cloud services and we do have on-premises data also, but we have not moved critical data to the cloud, and these cloud services are outside the country. Take for that matter AWS or Azure.
We can say, Mr. Amjad, that you have some lost trust in some cloud service.
I will not say, personal speaking, I don't have, I did not lose the trust, but I'm saying that why businesses are still resistant to cloud. So these approaches can be adopted. We can have our strategy of hybrid cloud, where if you want to have new services, so instead of having expensive services that you can implement within your organization, you can take those services from cloud. Or if you have already some cloud services and you want to avail the services which are available by local cloud providers, which we can see in near future that Oman will have many cloud service providers within the country. There are few, but there will be more. So then you can have the multi-cloud strategy where you can have the integration between the cloud vendors. And of course, all the cloud vendors are already equipped with such facilities like Kubernetes are implemented by them these days. So it is really very easy for them. Now, the last point which I want to mention here is the IT workforce. Of course, we have been talking about cloud infrastructure, cloud architecture, moving to the cloud and cloud technologies, Industry 4.0, whatever technology we talk about. But unfortunately, globally, we have a gap that these IT workforce is not yet equipped to adopt those services or to move to the cloud. So in my opinion, the organization has to put this into strategy as well to develop the skills of their IT workforce as well. Because IT has helped the organizations to do the automation. But now cloud is actually helping IT to automate their services. So the service which I can host in my organization in days, cloud can help me to adopt those services within clicks with the help of automation. And when we talk about disaster recovery, this is also within the clicks you can do the business continuity when in case of any pandemic, any disaster that will happen. So I believe the proper strategy has to be in place, as mentioned by Ms. Sri, that you have to see you have to have your the list of your information assets, that which exactly assets you can compromise, or which assets you can put on cloud, which assets you can have on premises. So based on the classification, then you can choose your approach, whether it is hybrid cloud, whether it is multi-cloud, or whether it is no cloud. maybe.
It depends. It depends. It depends. Thank you, Mr. Amjad, for this great information.
Thank you.
No, unfortunately, Dr. Hamad, we have exceeded our time, which I'm not complaining about because it's extremely, it's a privilege to hear from your expertise and Vikas and Sri and Anamjit's, talking about Oman strategy. And, we spoke about hybrid strategies, adding CX, customer experience, and so much more, regulation, data privacy, etc. Yeah. However, 10 minutes we have exceeded. So I would humbly request you to, let me kindly allow our next keynote presenter.
Thank you. Thank you.
Without me thanking you all, it will be unfulfilled. So thank you very much, Amjad. Thank you very much, Dr.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Sri and Vikas, for your precious time. And I hope to see you in one of our future summits also.
It was a pleasure talking to you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye for now.